Hello YouTube, welcome back for another video. This one is in response to a request which I had a few days ago from one of my lovely followers on here. And it was to do with a question around a very common problem that I see a lot in my teaching, and which I think at one point or another we have all experienced, and that is the problem of a squeezing left thumb. So I promised I would think about that for a few days and then put my ideas and possible solutions on video. I actually think that the issue of the squeezing left thumb isn't so much a problem in itself, in as much as it is the symptom of another problem, if that makes sense. So it's a manifestation of something else going wrong rather than a problem in itself. And I think there are several possible root causes, and you might find that it's in your case just down to one of them, and I think this is usually what I find more often than not, it's a combination of all of them. But we'll tackle them one by one in turn. In general, I find that a lack of, a squeezing left thumb is really, it's a manifestation of a lack of control. And more often than not, a lack of control is very often due to actually a lack of proper muscle support, a proper muscle strength. And that isn't, that's not a problem that's unique to playing the cello. You can find the same, in variety of sports, when you're running. There's a problem I've had myself doing my knee in several times over because I just didn't have the necessary muscle support to keep it well aligned. So it's a problem that's really crops up, wherever we perform any activity that requires good shape, a lack of proper muscle support. Now, in your fingers, that is particularly common, especially, in majority of cases, the left hand is a non-dominant hand. And I find, especially when I teach young children, I see very often that the joints are still very very soft, sometimes even double jointed, and everything is just sort of quite, it's sort of a little bit, the fingers sort of feel a little bit like, wet noodles, and as a result, usually what then happens is that somebody starts to compensate for that lack of control by just adding pressure. So let's start first of all with what we can do to solve this problem of a lack of finger strings, and that just really it just needs a few targeted exercises. If any of you follow my Instagram channel, I'll put the handle below in the comments. You will have seen that a few days ago I put up a little series of videos about the benefits of these. These are hand exercise balls. They are squidgy. There's three different ones here, three different colors, three different levels of resistance, three different levels of squidginess. And in those videos I showed a couple of exercises for the right hand, but also a couple for the left hand, which I'm now going to show you again. Yeah, so the first thing we always need to remember that in order to really have a really good shape, we need this sort of, I talk about this a lot in my videos, this C shape, the sort of little I spy here. And this is where these come in. This is the yellow one here, is the softest one of them, and when you're new to this I always suggest start with the lowest resistance one. Yeah? These, by the way, you can buy them very cheaply on Amazon or other websites, and they're a really good tool to have. So here is what we do. we just start out with our C shape like that, you see, and then all I do is I'm not squeezing in order to flatten the ball. I'm just making a slight dent in it and then hold for several seconds, 3 to 5 seconds. Yeah, count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, release. Yeah, and look how I always keep this shape here. So you do it with all your fingers together initially. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, release. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, release. So you do a few of these, 4 or 5 rounds of this a day, and already very, very quickly you will actually start to notice that when you are now pressing the string down, the resistance is roughly similar, I find, to the softest one of these balls, that actually you find it much easier to maintain that shape without that happening. Yeah, so that's it, the first exercise. And the second one I use involves individual fingers and the thumb, like that, again, C shape, and you make up little rhythms. So I don't know, anything, very simple to start with. Quavers and crotchets, coffee, tea, coffee, tea. I'm very sorry for my non-British followers. When I talk about quavers and crotchets, I mean eighths notes and quarter notes. We have some funny names for those. So, da da da, da da da. Repeat with different fingers. Coffee, tea, coffee, tea. You will find that as you go down the fingers, it gets harder. Coffee, tea, coffee, tea. It's quite difficult to do it with the fourth finger. Tea, coffee, tea. But try. Yeah? So, exactly the same exercise you can then repeat on the cello. So the same tapping, you see, you can hear a little sound coming out here. Coffee, tea, coffee, tea, coffee, tea, coffee, tea. And now let's take a look at this shape again. To be absolutely clear, generally, actually the two shapes in the left and the right hand, they're quite similar. See, in the way you hold the bow, again, when we hold the bow, we are not involving the fleshy bit of the thumb. And likewise, the same in the left hand, yeah? The fleshy bit of the thumb shouldn't really be, that should not be sort of squeezing into the back of the neck. It should really, again, just be the side here, yeah? Because I very simply always compare it to how you would hold anything else, yeah? When you're holding, let's say, a mug here, you see, you're not using the fleshy bit. It would be really, really, really unnatural. So you just want to do exactly the same on the cello, yeah? So, coffee, tea, coffee, tea. You can make up whatever rhythm you want, vary it, the more the merrier, you see? But the whole point is that while you're doing that, you maintain that shape. So that is one possible root cause, and that is one possible solution. Now let's look at another very, very big underlying cause of squeezing thumbs, and that has to do usually with the placement of the left arm. Yeah. So if you've watched some of my other videos, you will have heard me talk about one underlying principle which I always apply to anything technical, and that is we play with our arms, not with our fingers. Yeah? So let's just break that down a little bit, because we always talk about the left hand and the right hand. And I think in many ways that can be a little bit misleading, because it sort of almost conditions us to only think about, what happens sort of below the wrists, and completely forget about the most important thing, which is what happens higher up in the arm. Yeah, so again, I talk usually about, you know, about the arms as a sort of organization. Yeah, the management, the board level is up here. Yeah, that's where the big decisions get made as to where I need to go on the instrument. And then, you know, we have the lower arm here, which is sort of the middle management. It's got some autonomy, but, you know, it's still really, you know, very dependent on the actions of what happens above. And then there is a hand and the fingers. And those really just, they're just the workers on the shop floor. They kind of execute the orders that come from above, right? So correct placement of especially the upper arm is absolutely vital, because what I see a lot, and this is really a problem which it's quite interesting, it really with cellists it goes through from, you know, beginners all the way to professionals, and indeed it's something I have to constantly check myself for, and that is very, very often the left shoulder retracts. Now let's see what happens when we do that. When I say left shoulder retracts, the movement actually starts much, much lower down. It's a twist in your spine that actually starts sort of almost, you know, down here, sort of at kind of stomach, pelvis level. Okay, now what happens? You see, now I'm actually, what I'm doing by doing that, I'm actually taking my fingers further away from the string. Look at that. So now I have taken my arm support away from my fingertips. I no longer have the weight of my arm on top of these fingertips. And what happens? My fingers get weaker and weaker and weaker, and I need to get that string down. And of course, what do I start to do to compensate? I start squeezing from behind, yeah? And my thumb starts squeezing. So here we are, you see? And that's why I always say, whenever you set up your left hand, getting ready to play, never just fish for an individual note with a finger, because especially with the first finger, I mean, anything goes here. You can do that in whatever odd position and you will somehow be able to put your finger there. No, don't do that. Always set up the whole position from the fourth finger downwards. So make sure your fourth finger is really well supported. You see now my shoulder belt is nice and straight. Really, you want your shoulders to be right above your hips. Everything nice and square. Yeah, like that. And arm out, make the arm long, fold at the elbow crease. And you see there is just one long line from fingers here, from fingertips to elbow. And when I do that, you see, nice long arm, you feel that you have so much natural weight. Never forget, your arm alone, depending on, you know, your overall size, will weigh somewhere between 3 and 6 kilos. And if you actually were to pick up, I sometimes do this with my students, I give them, I don't know, a 3 or 4 or 5 kilo dumbbell and have them hold it, and oh my God, are they surprised how heavy that actually is, yeah? So that's the weight that you're putting onto the string. Now, when you do that, my thumb is now barely even touching the cello. It's barely even touching because I have so much weight, natural weight from above. It doesn't need any help to get the string down at all. You see, and I can, that way I can move up and down the instrument very, very, very freely. Yeah. So for me, these are the two sort of big main root causes. Yeah. And as I said, more often than not, it's a combination of the two. The thing is with musculature in fingers is they're very, very small muscles. They can lose their conditioning in their strings quite quickly. Again, if I go on holiday for 2 weeks without the cello, I come back, we're back to the wet noodles, yeah? But luckily, by doing exercises like these, you can actually build these muscles or rebuild these muscles very, very, very quickly. So you lose them quickly, but you can also build them really, 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 really quickly. Yeah. So I now actually usually take one of these on holiday with me. So I just, you know, I can keep doing that. And when I come home, my fingers won't feel quite so out of shape. Most important whenever you do these exercises, as I said before, shape. It's not about how much of a dent you make into the ball. Tiny little bit is enough. Just maintain good shape. Yeah. So, and as I said, the other huge sort of thing to watch out for is your shoulder placement, is your arm placement. And when you watch that, you will actually find that lots of things fall into place. So, any more questions or any feedback? As usual, I absolutely love to hear all your feedback. And if you found this useful today, then as usual, smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. And as I said before, you can now also find more content and some footage from my own practice on my Instagram channel at cello_Julia. The handle is below in the descriptions. And I really look forward to seeing you soon again.